F1 podcast.
This is the Everything F1 podcast. Stay tuned to listen to all the latest breaking news from around the F1 paddock. Hello and welcome to the Everything F1 podcast with me, James Tiller. We have along for the ride today Danny, Coops, Adam and James, and we're here to talk to you all about the latest goings on around the F1 paddock, a chat about testing and all the latest breaking news. But sadly first, we're going to talk about the deaths of two icons from the motorsport world. Firstly, we'll talk about the voice of F1, and that is Murray Walker. Now, sadly, Murray Walker died on the 13th of March this year, and it hit the world hard, hit the Formula One world hard. To many, Murray Walker was the voice of F1. He was the person that introduced everyone with his excitement when you were watching the races. He retired in 2001, but was still very much within the world, and he gave interviews and his opinions many times for the BBC, and of course to Sky when it was broadcast there. Now, what were your memories of Murray Walker, Coops?
Just his voice in general. His funny wee mistakes. Just his passion, his enthusiasm.
He was like he was just like one of us, wasn't he? He was just as excited about things. He was just, if not more so than the average fan. His excitement, he was just a big fan. He was just, one of your family watching the sport with you and enjoying it just as much as you were. Do you remember a lot about Murray Walker, Adam?
Not really. I think I got into F1 after he retired. I'm not too sure. I can't really remember. More remember the stories people say about him and sort of clips of him and all his Murrayisms as well. It's always good for a laugh. But yeah, his voice is synonymous with Formula One, and you can see, especially now with Crofty, he tries to sort of emulate what Murray Walker did for F1 and for all the fans watching at home, to bring them into the enjoyment of the race. Absolutely. You've obviously touched on the Murrayisms there. They were a part of his unique style. Obviously, he was just so excited and so enthusiastic about what was going on the screen that obviously he got a bit carried away and forgot a name or said something completely ludicrous. But we didn't criticize him for it. It was all part of his charm. And there's many famous ones out there that obviously we could read for days and days and days because there are so many of them and they're so great. But what I like to say, as I say, is they were part of his charm, and people don't have that same charm these days. If Crofty makes a mistake, they're like, "Oh, bloody Crofty, get it right." Whereas no one was like that with Murray at all. It was always like, "No, he's made a mistake, but it's fun." It always added to the excitement. Oh, he's done another one. He's made another error. It was always really great to hear, and it was always part of his repertoire, I guess. Coops, have you got a favourite Murrayism?
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that car except it's on fire.
How about you, Danny? I know you're probably too young for any of the live commentary, but you must have read some in the past and listened to some of the audio clips. Have you got a Murrayism that you'd favour as one of the ones that kind of makes you giggle?
Yeah, well, I mean, I am a bit young for him, really. I got into F1 after he finished.
Yeah.
After he retired, but it's funny. It's still, like Adam said, it's still the voice of F1. It's still the voice I hear. When you think of races, you still hear his voice. It's because I've just watched so many older races, with his voice, and the excitement that comes from it it's brilliant. As you say with Crofty, a lot of people criticise him because of his excitement and the mistakes he makes, but it's very similar. And I had a disagreement with somebody on Facebook, of course, because that's where all disagreements happen nowadays, who was saying, they really didn't like Crofty, not in nice words, obviously, because it's Facebook. But and I said, what do you want? Somebody who just doesn't care, and there they go, and it's Hamilton again, and you want excitement, and you want somebody who who reacts the way you would if you were sat in that seat. That was exactly how Murray Walker was. You know, that'd be how you were if you were sat there, excited, not quite able to get the words out because you're so excited. Yeah, it's. I think that's why everybody related and loved him so much, because that's exactly how you would be when you were there, and he always was like that. From every single race, just really excited to be there. Yeah. Oh yeah, I've watched, seen quite a few. I think it's 3 lights, it's 4 lights, it's 5 laps.
Yeah.
Pause. Go, go, go.
He even giggled it himself in that one. I think he was like, "Oh, what am I talking about?"
Yeah, we just got on with it. Yeah.
Well, they said, I think it was Martin Brundle. They said the reason he started doing the go, go, go was to fill the time between the lights going out and them getting to the first corner. Because there wasn't much happened, so it was go, 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 and then sort of give them time to sort themselves out.
Trick of the trade, then. A trick of the trade.
Yeah.
I remember I've got a few here in front of me actually, and one that kind of jumps out. It was just obviously it's a bit crazy. I know it's an old cliche, but you can cut the atmosphere with a cricket stump.
I don't think that's a cliche.
I've got a few more here. We'll have it's more of a celebration of his life if we kind of talk about him in a fond manner. I mean, we're obviously devastated that he has gone, but he did live for 97 years. He had a great life, and he instilled a lot of enjoyment for the sport in a lot of people. Let's just choose another one. And there's no damage to the car except to the car itself.
Unless I'm very much mistaken, I am very much mistaken.
And Damon Hill is following Damon Hill. But you see, if somebody else said that now, they just wouldn't. They'd get criticised, and obviously social media would go absolutely crazy about it. But Murray just never got that. It was always just looked at really fondly, and they were great to hear.
I've got a good one here. He's obviously gone in for a pit stop. I say obviously because I cannot see anything.
He's obviously just, when he's saying these things, he's obviously literally just trying to work out what's going on, and his brain is just going 100 miles an hour. Probably just as quick as the cars, and he can't get his words out properly. But it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Either that car is stationary or it's on the move. It's just commentary to the extreme, isn't it? It's literally just saying exactly what he's thinking, looking.
Yeah.
He is exactly 10 seconds ahead, or more approximately 9.86 seconds.
He's
with half the race gone, there is half a race to go.
He's the only man on the track except for his car. That's a good one.
Obviously, we're looking at these things, and it is fun to remember them. And you can just imagine his tone of voice when he's saying these things. Absolutely brilliant. A great commentator. Really encapsulated everything that was Formula One, and introduced people to the sport from 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago, when the sport started. He transcended generations and generations of Formula One fans. What are your thoughts on Murray Walker's death, James?
I think on my own Facebook, I kind of summed it up as well as I possibly could. And I said, I think if you spoke to any motorsport fan when the news broke, I think everybody would probably have felt like they'd all lost a family member. I think he was like that. He was like Uncle Murray kind of thing, you know what I mean? He was everybody who knew and loved knows and loves motorsport. If you ask who's the best commentator ever, it's Murray Walker. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not even ashamed to say when my dad came up, I was actually playing on my computer at the time, and Dad came because we'd been watching Sky Sports earlier in the day, and it was the classic race. I think it was the Mansell PK battle at Silverstone.
Mm-hmm.
And Murray Walker was commentating, and Dad Dad came up and he was like, I think we were meant to watch that earlier. And like, I didn't understand what he was saying at first, and then all of a sudden, it's like, I was like, oh no, what? No. And I just burst into tears. I'm not even ashamed to say it, because it's like, like I say, I think from my point of view, and I think a lot of people will relate, it feels like you've lost a family member, because he was just, you know, he brought the sport to so many people, and he made so many people fall in love with the sport because of his commentary.
Absolutely.
He made a, you know, he made uh, um, a sport magical, basically. You know, is the way that he commented, and he could just, you know, he could just go from excitement to utter despair, and you know, with Senna's death, he dealt with it perfectly. There is nobody else in motorsport in commentary that I think has ever been able to do that, and probably never will. But yeah, I'm yeah, devastated, I think, is the word, to be honest.
Yeah, we were talking about, obviously at the time he had lots of quirks about his commentating style, and obviously he made mistakes because his brain was probably slower than his lips. Basically, he was always very quick with the words, and his brain caught up a few seconds later. I mean,
there's been videos, haven't there, of him in the commentary box where he's like, you know, he's so excited.
Yeah.
And he'll be swaying backwards and forwards. You know, Martin Brundle will have been in there, and you know, he'll see something, and even though they've both got microphones, he'll put his arm on Martin's shoulder, and he'll be like, "I need to talk. I need to say something. I need to do it now." And Martin will just like straight away he'll stop, and you know, Murray will be in there with his, you know, his unique style. Yeah, I think it really hit me, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It's sad, but he had a great life, and he was great, as you say. He was like a family member to a lot of people, and he reached to a great age of 97. So we should be proud, and he should be proud of that, and we should be really happy that we got to experience his unique style, as you say. Have you got a favorite Murrayism from Murray Walker at all? Have you got a favorite time from listening to him in the past? I know obviously you were listening and watching Formula One all the way through your life, so you obviously watched from the 80s up into, you know, now, so you would experience a lot of Murray Walker.
I think there's two. There's two. There's probably one favorite in a humorous sense was the time where he interviewed Mansell after he got that bump on his face, and he went to point to his face, and he literally just poked him in.
Yeah, he goes, be careful with your hat, and then he takes his hat off and he just pokes him straight in the butt.
Oh, sorry. So that's probably my favourite funny one. I think that's the thing that always sticks in my head is when Senna died. I think that race, and like I say, the way that he dealt with it, he knew what was happening.
Yeah, because he was in F1 for, you know, a number of deaths, a number of these experiences. He would have known and experienced those things before. So unfortunately,
yeah, because I mean, don't forget, before the Senna death, there hadn't been a death in the sport for something like, was it 12 years or something like that prior to Senna dying?
Yeah,
but I think, like you say, the fact that Murray had been there since 49 or 48, was it, or something like that? He'd seen people come and go, like, you know, like a merry-go-round, and you know, he'd seen people die in front of his eyes in terms of commentating. And I just think he knew that there was something different about that particular accident. Obviously, Ratzenberger dying the day before. Yeah, I think he knew that the writing was on the wall from the first moment, to be honest. And I think you know that from the change of the tone in his voice straight away.
Absolutely, yeah. But professional to the core, completely controlled the situation, and you know, obviously what happened. But there was no one else that could have dealt with it better than him. You know, ever the professional. And the one that sticks in my mind is probably the season I really kind of took interest in in Formula One. Obviously, it was always on in the background. I've said this before on other podcasts and chats and whatnot. F1 has always been on in the background in my house since I was born. But the season where Damon Hill won his championship will forever really be the first season that I really took notice. So I was like, yes, British Formula One champion. I'm going to be able to see one in my lifetime. And it kind of, every race, it would get better and better. And I'd just watch until the end. And those famous lines as Damon Hill crossed the line, it will go down it will just go down in history as probably the most emotional commentary that I've ever heard, because I think I was crying at the time myself. You really felt that he was part of Damon Hill's life, which he would have been, because he commented on his father's racing and racecraft. He would have would have known the family throughout the whole of the death of Graham Hill, and obviously it would have been he would have been overcome with emotion, and just like us, we kind of got carried away with him as well, with that emotion, and probably all had a tear in our eye when we saw Damon Hill cross the line. And we'll play the famous words to end this segment of the podcast, because it is, to me, the epitome of great commentary, and it's just brilliant.
This is something that many people didn't think could possibly happen today. They thought Damon would drive a cautious race, but he fought. He fought from second on the grid. He passed Jacques Villeneuve. He took the lead. He stayed there. And Damon Hill exits the chicane and wins the Japanese Grand Prix. And I've got to stop because I've got a lump in my throat.
Now, unfortunately, in the motorsport world, we've also lost another great. She was one of Top Gear's presenters in recent years. She was also helped out with the original three of Jeremy Clarkson, Hammond and May in several of their segments on the show when they were part of Top Gear. And let's not forget her great motorsport achievements and the fact that she's probably done around about 30,000 laps around the Nordschleife in the Nürburgring. The Green Death, or the Green Hell, sorry. She's always smiling, and that's Sabine Schmitz. Now, this hit me quite hard, actually, because she's only 51 years old in comparison to, the great Murray Walker, who was 97. So she had loads more to give, I feel. And she was, a fighter to the end. She'd been fighting cancer for 3 years, apparently. But sadly, it took her life on the 16th of March. Sad times in the motorsport world. What's your thoughts on the death of Sabine, Danny?
Yeah, very sad. Yeah, I mean, straight away you think of her and you see the smiling face.
Uh-huh.
That's the that's what hits you first, isn't it? When somebody's so smiley, so cheery, so happy.
Yeah.
Mainly remember her from Top Gear, going around the Nürburgring in the van, the transit van.
Yeah.
Yeah. And nearly beating Clarkson he was in a Jaguar S-Type, I think it was, and she said, "Oh, well, I can beat your time in a van." And they went, "Go on then," and then she very nearly did. and then she went in the S-Type afterwards and then did beat him by far. Yeah, but pretty much beat him in the transit van, really. But very sad. Yeah, as you say, 51. It's no age, is it?
No, not at all. In that program, obviously Clarkson had gone around the Nordschleife probably 100 times trying to beat the 10-minute mark in the car. That was his target, I think it was, and she did it pretty much immediately. It shows her skill behind the wheel, that she could do it almost in a van, as you say, but definitely in the Jag. But she was a regular there. She helped the Nürburgring kind of show people around the Nordschleife. She gave rides to people. She is the person with the most laps under her belt. There's no one else that has done as many laps around the Nordschleife as her. So she really was the queen of the Nürburgring, and she was fantastic as well. Let's not forget her sporting achievements as well. Sabine was the overall winner in 1996 and 1997 for BMW for the 24-hour Nürburgring race, which is just fantastic. 24 hours of racing in a team, and she was the overall winner of it. She's had other great touring car championship results. She's just got a great career behind her. She was just very fast, a very fast woman. She was very fun to watch on Top Gear, and she had a great character and great personality. And I think she will be absolutely missed within the motorsport community. Have you got anything to add to this, James?
Not a lot. I think Danny kind of summed it up really well, to be honest with you. I think my biggest memory is exactly the same thing. It was very, very sad to have lost her so young, really.
Absolutely. How about you, Adam? Anything to add about Sabine?
No, I think it's just you could see she was never happiest than behind the wheel of a really fast car.
Yeah,
and you could see that, how much she enjoyed just driving really, 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 really fast. That's all she wanted to do.
She's really motivated by speed, motivated by being in all these different cars. She was the Stig once as well, I think, which is an interesting point. She was the Stig at one point.
Yeah.
And they must highly regard her, the BBC, to bring her in for these sorts of situations, and she was very highly regarded in the motorsport world. So she will be sadly missed. So rest in peace, Sabine Schmitz. So let's move on to testing. Obviously, we've just had testing 3 days over in Bahrain, and we've had a mixed bag, really. What did you take from testing, Danny?
Mercedes didn't do much. Yeah, really. Yeah, it's the sandbagging.
Right, okay.
Sandbagging, yeah. Are they, aren't they? Issues, aren't they? Yeah, who knows? Everybody, nothing. They've got nothing wrong, and they're just playing us all. That's what's happening. Yeah, look at us, poor Mercedes. Look, we can't get our car sorted. Yeah, we'll see.
They're just teasing us, getting us excited that there might be a bit of a closer battle this year. And then on qualifying day next weekend, they'll pump in 2 5 seconds faster than everything. 2 laps 5 seconds faster than the rest of the field, and we'll all go.
Yeah, well, Bottas says he's going to do an eco, so we'll see. He was talking to Ted. He said he's going to do an eco. And Ted sort of said, well, fully? Or he said, no, not all of it.
He's going to throw a cap at him and
we'll see how that goes.
Drive him off the road.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
Well, you were shaking your head there, Adam. You don't agree. You think Mercedes aren't sandbagging as much as people are thinking. You're thinking Red Bull are going to be strong?
I don't know. I could definitely see they had issues in testing. Definitely on low fuel, the car wasn't comfortable at all. You could see even in the body language of the car, you could see it wasn't completely settled, and it was really struggling to heat up the tires and get the tires in the right window for a quick lap. You could see, especially in the last day when Hamilton was trying to get to start a hot lap, he really struggled to get the car in the right place. They even spun, coming around the last corner.
Very, very unlike Hamilton to spin.
Very unlike Hamilton spin, and it's very unlikely for Mercedes to look this sort of unsettled during testing. Usually they're pretty well sorted for testing. I think, as some people have said, with the reduction in spending, and as well with Mercedes not doing a filming day before testing, I think it really caught them out with being prepared for testing. So I think they're just a bit behind the ball going into testing. So we'll see what they can come up with between now and the first race.
So if they're unsettled in the car, and it's obviously something to do with the balance of the car or something they've added to the car.
I think
it won't take them long to sort that out, will it? They're Mercedes.
Well, I don't know, because I think it's to do with the loss of downforce at the rear. So the FIA have taken off 10% of rear downforce,
Right.
which seems to be has affected some teams worse than others, especially teams like Mercedes, who really focused on rear downforce in the last couple of years. So to remove that 10%, it seems to have unbalanced the car, especially in low fuel. You could see on high fuel there were still Mercedes, they were still really quick, but as soon as you took the fuel out and the balance obviously shifted on the car, you could see there that they were so struggling to find that right balance.
Yeah.
Whether they still have that issue in 2 weeks' time, we'll have to wait and see.
Have you got anything to add to that, Spunge?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to a season where Mercedes have been caught on the hop. I think it was you who said a few weeks ago on our podcast, it's usually the last season of a set of rules that kind of throws up the best like championship year. And I think if testing's anything to go by, it's certainly going to follow that trend. I've been of the opinion for quite a long time that Mercedes like to create their own drama to keep people interested.
Yeah.
It's like, when you hear them going around, it's like, we're managing a problem. It's like, you're managing a problem 3 seconds a lap quicker than everybody else. Don't give me that crap. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It's like, pull the other one.
We're not quite 100%. Everyone else is performing at 75%, but we're not quite 100%. We're only 97% this race.
Yeah, but I think with exactly what Adam said before, the fact that they didn't do that filming day. I don't really think that you can. I don't really think that you can claim that there's a team out there that would be sandbagging with only 3 days of testing this season.
Yeah,
I really don't think any of them would be daft enough to do that. I think, if you're in the garage for best part of a day out of 3 days of testing, getting rid of nearly a third of that testing time straight away, I think you can genuinely say, actually, they had a problem. They're not trying to create their own drama on this one. They really actually have. And I think if that's the case, then I'm sure they've got enough people there to figure it out. But certainly for the first half of the season, maybe it'll attract a much tighter contest.
So are you saying I'm going to have to change my fantasy F1 league team? Because I've got Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes. Am I going to have to shift it over to Max and Red Bull?
No, in the interests of absolutely everybody else in the competition, do not change a thing.
So yeah, the other thing was as well as Spunge was saying, the Mercedes and Aston Martin had the lowest lap count of all the teams within 3 days, and you could see it wasn't just they weren't running for the sake of it. The car was either not working or was getting fixed. So
they had a gearbox issue, didn't they? They had gearbox issues on the first day.
Both teams had a gearbox issue, which is funny because the only team, one of the teams that doesn't use the Mercedes gearbox is McLaren, and they're one of the 4 Mercedes teams that didn't have an issue with the gearbox. So it seems to be a problem with the actual Mercedes gearbox that's supplied to Aston Martin. Again, that could be down to not having that 100 kilometers of running before the test.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. They could have added something different this year that's just not playing ball. It's not actually working for the car, and they might even take it off and to go back to last year's at some point if it continues to do so. I'm sure the season.
I have an interesting thought / question for everybody. The fact that Mercedes designed their car intentionally for a car that leads the pack.
Yeah.
If they're caught on the hop and they're not quite up to speed at the start of the season, do we see them being second and third or third and fourth? Or do we see them actually struggling that much that they kind of get swallowed up a little bit by the rest of the pack because of the fact that their car can't
Follow.
their car can't follow as easy?
Mm-hmm.
Do they then, once they're behind, say for example the Red Bulls,
Yeah.
do they then get kind of swallowed back into the pack if Red Bull aren't? What I'm saying is, if the gap between Red Bull and the rest of the pack isn't that great,
Mm-hmm.
and Mercedes find themselves in that gap, does that bunch the whole field back up together? You know, I mean, from our point of view as fans, that could lead to, who knows, it could lead to, you know, ridiculous podiums like we saw at Monza last year kind of thing.
Yes,
So,
please.
But yeah, absolutely.
Well,
bring it on.
Yeah, I think there's a possibility that Red Bull, will be in front, especially in the first race. But I don't think Mercedes is going to be that far behind that they're going to be, fighting with the midfield.
Mm.
I think there's still enough of a gap between the top 2-3 teams and the rest that it won't really be that much of a problem for Mercedes.
No, I still think it's between Red Bull and Mercedes. I do think, because I don't think the rules have changed so much that it's going to impact on Mercedes too much. I think Mercedes are still going to clinch the title. Personally, this is my own personal opinion. I'm a McLaren fan. Not so secretly. I'm wearing a bright orange T-shirt now because of it. I'm being a McLaren fan, so I'd love to see them up there fighting with the top step for the top step, and performing brilliantly throughout the whole season. And I really do see that they will get some great points, and I can see them as solidifying their third place in the championship. Hopefully, fingers crossed, they do even better. But I don't see.
Yeah, they looked really strong.
Yeah, but I don't see the Mercedes being knocked off their perch just yet. No. What else did we get from the testing? Any other teams that really caught your eye? There you go. May as well go to you, Adam.
Well, yeah, McLaren.
Okay, yeah.
They were really strong. They were usually the first team out on track for each session. I think they topped, two of the sessions. I think Ricciardo was fastest of 2 of his 3 sessions. They weren't going, to do the most laps. They weren't going out to do the fastest time. They had their plan. They completed their plan.
Yeah.
They could see, they were testing lots of different parts. They were back-to-back testing lots of different parts. So they were going through their program, and they had no issues at all, as far as I could see. They had no mechanical issues.
And do you think Ricciardo's settled into the team perfectly well, and is there to do business, and he will achieve the thing that he wants to achieve while he's at the team?
Yeah, I think he looked comfortable straight away on his first lap out on track. There was no outbreaking himself. There's no going wide. He was just. I think it then itself, because the McLaren is a very compliant car, a very well balanced car. It's easy to sort of get comfortable with.
There's one thing they're always very good at is designing a car with great balance. It's just they haven't had the engines over the previous years. So now they've got an engine, and they're one of the best designers in aero parts that you can have on the grid. So hopefully, with the combination of all the rest of the stuff that goes on the car and the Mercedes engine, something that they've been probably missing. We're definitely missing over recent years. I see them being a force to reckon with.
Yeah, I saw an article with Ricciardo, and he said about the biggest difference between the teams that he's been with is braking.
Okay.
Going from the Red Bull to the Renault, one of the biggest things was finding the right braking for him.
Right.
And that's what took him the longest, was finding that right balance with the braking. And he says, once he finds that with the McLaren, then he'll really be able to sort of push the car.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Spunge? You're a fellow McLaren fan yourself, fellow papaya wearer. What do you think about McLaren's chances this year?
I think it all rests on Ferrari, to be perfectly honest with you. I think, like you've already said, Red Bull are looking strong, as they always are. Mercedes will be there or thereabouts. Whether it takes them a couple of races to get there, then we don't know. But I think I think McLaren have got the potential to be that team that Red Bull were. You know, that team that are kind of lurking where they're not necessarily leading the race, but if something happens, they're always there ready to pounce and get a podium or a win or, you know, something. You know, if something happens, they're there. I genuinely do think that McLaren are poised to be that kind of, you know, outlier that can do that, but it all depends on what happens with the Ferrari. Are they going to do another Liverpool and promise so much and deliver so little again, or are they actually going to bring it back to the top? I honestly can't see them getting so close to the top so quickly. I really can't. Not for a team that has gone through so many personnel, had so many changes, and wasted so much money over the last 5 or 10 years. I genuinely can't see them getting straight back up to the top. But
it'd be great to see them swallowing up as many points as possible to you know, solidify that third place, wouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I really do think that McLaren have got an exciting season ahead. I mean, you all know I'm a massive McLaren fan. I mean, who wouldn't want to see them back up on the podium regularly?
Yeah,
you know,
they've got a lineup that can do it as well, haven't they? They've got a lineup.
Yeah,
Daniel Ricciardo's proven race winner. Lando Norris came third in the opening race last year, 2020. So we know they've got the talent behind the wheel. That we know they've got the talent designing the cars. They've now got what is the best engine in the back of the car. There's all the right things are there in place.
You forgot one thing as well, Tiller.
What's that?
They've got scenario 7.
No, they're not allowed to use engine modes now. They're not allowed to use different engine modes. No, that was banned middle of last year. Scenario 7. You got anything to add to this, Danny?
Well, it's all been said, really, hasn't it? I think. Yeah, they're looking great. Yeah, I think they've got a solid third place coming. It's a shame. I suppose, as Spunge said, it depends on Ferrari. I think people are just automatically assuming they're going to do as bad as they did last year. But we don't know. That's the thing. I think they are the great unknown this year.
Well, let's talk about Ferrari then. They've released a great new livery. See, I'm saying it right this time. They've released a great new livery, and there seems to be a lot of different parts on that car too. And the engine also seems to have a bit more power to it. What did you pick up from the testing 3 days in Bahrain for Ferrari, Adam?
It was hard to tell. Sometimes it looked like they were, all right, same as last year. And sometimes, they would pump in a fast lap out of nowhere, and you'd be like, "Oh, where'd that come from?" The rest of the time you'd be nowhere. So it was hard to tell exactly where they were. They could either be at the front of the midfield or at the back of the midfield. It was just so hard to tell.
Is there an improvement on that engine?
It's hard to tell because so much of the midfield uses the Ferrari engine, so they all, will all move forward. So it's hard to tell because there's no way to tell them apart really. Because
no benchmark at the moment.
If one improves, all three improve. So you can't really see if they've improved. Especially when you've got other teams like the AlphaTauri that seem to have improved a lot with using last year's Red Bull. And Alpine seems to be around about where they were last year. They don't seem to have gained too much, but they haven't fallen back. And Williams seems to be a wee bit closer to the midfield, but I don't know if they're that much closer. And obviously Haas, basically of last year's car, seems to be the slowest. So
yeah, absolutely.
With the whole field sort of all moving forward, it's hard to see where Ferrari are because everyone's moved forward. So as much as they may have improved themselves, everyone else has improved as well. So it's sort of a minus sum game. They've improved, everyone else has, so they haven't really improved at all.
Yeah, so it really is. It's one of those things. is it exciting to watch testing now? Because there's a lot of sandbagging going on, but there's lots of unknowns. How much fuel is in the car? Are they putting the engine in the full speed mode or whatever, or are they doing qualifying modes or race mode? It's difficult to tell. I can see what you're saying.
You can certainly tell. You can tell when somebody's on it, because they're really throwing the car around. You can tell when they're just doing a long run and they've got a lot of fuel in the car. You can tell those when they're really low, when they're really full. You can tell the difference. But in between, it could be anything.
Yeah. How did Carlos has settled into the team?
I think he had a couple of wee moments of late braking, missing corners, apex and stuff like that. But he seemed to be settling in okay in the Ferrari.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he's regretting his move to Ferrari, or do you think the thrill of being in the red prancing horses overtakes any kind of regret?
Yeah, I think anyone that's had the call up from Ferrari, look at was it Fisichella, gave up a full-time drive to drive half a season in the Ferrari, and it's Ferrari. You can't say no to Ferrari. You can always say for the rest of your life, I was a Ferrari driver. So
yeah, true.
Why would you say no to that?
Spunge, your dad is a massive Ferrari fan. He works on Ferrari road cars because he's such a Ferrari fan. Do you think he's looking forward to the season ahead? Do you think he's going to have a bit of enjoyment watching these races this year?
He's beautifully British about everything at the moment. He's a West Brom fan and a Ferrari fan. There's not much going for him right now. So I think it's a wait and see. We were both sat down watching the first day of testing last Friday.
Yeah.
Watching the sandstorm that was like ensuing.
Mm-hmm.
He was more concerned about all the team's engines. He was like, "They can't run in that; it's going to knacker the engines up." He doesn't necessarily say much about it until things start, they get going, and then he can get a good idea on what's actually happening. I mean, it's the same, isn't it? We can all sit here and say what we think, but until they get into the first qualifying session, you're not going to have any idea as to who's doing what, really. No,
absolutely.
Yeah, I know he wants them to do well, but whether they will do well is a completely different thing. If it's anything to do with if it's anything like the football that we've had to endure this season, then they'll be fighting Williams at the back.
Coops,
have you got anything to add about Ferrari?
I'm not 100% sure on them. Ferrari and Aston Martin are probably the two unknown quantities. They never got enough done. The car itself looked okay, but everybody else has progressed where they haven't. Or they have, but the progression from everybody else around them means that the amount they've got to progress won't seem as much. So I don't think they're going to come back as the third best team.
No, absolutely not.
I think they'll still be there or thereabouts. There might be a couple more visits to the top 10, but not much more.
How about you, Danny? Do you think we'll see a Ferrari in the points a bit more this season?
Well, as I say, people seem to be assuming they'll do the same as next year, really. But I haven't seen anything to tell me whether they will or they won't. Really, I haven't seen much promise, but I haven't seen much issues. Really, it's a strange one. So I'm not too sure what to expect from them. Really, it seems they've got a good pairing there with Leclerc and Sainz. Whether Sainz can settle in quickly or not. Again, he seemed comfortable in the car, but it's a lot to get used to, of course. So it's it's different because I always see a team like McLaren as quite a family, whereas a team like Ferrari is quite a business, if that makes sense. So
And he's very strict as well. It's you are expected to perform, aren't you? You know, it's not like, oh yeah, come on, brother, you just do what you can, and we'll sort it out at the end.
Italian media on your shoulder, haven't you? Expecting you to do
Yeah.
perfect. I mean, they've had years of not perfect, so I'm not quite sure why they're still expecting that. But yeah, they want perfect. So it's going from McLaren, I think, to Ferrari is going to be a bit of a struggle personally for him, because I certainly know, you can tell by the way Ricciardo's settled in. You know, he's been at Red Bull, and again, Red Bull is a team that I see more as a business than a family. You know, and to be there again, perfection. You know, you really need to do well here. Whereas McLaren seems more of a family, seems more of a warmer place to be. So, yeah,
I don't think you can dislike McLaren.
No. Nobody does. I've never trusted.
I don't think it's one of those teams that people go, I really don't like McLaren. No. It's not. It just doesn't happen, does it?
No, it is just a family, isn't it? It really is just a family. So it's like Williams. You know, they don't.
Yeah.
You know, Williams aren't doing great, but nobody dislikes Williams. You know, obviously it's not quite the family business now, but you know, it always was, and it always will be seen to be Williams. You know, so it's.
Well, that's what people are usually fans of McLaren rather than fans of McLaren's drivers. So I think that's the difference. I think a lot of people are fans of Ferrari drivers, not so much Ferrari. And same with Williams. People are Williams fans, but not Williams drivers fans. So I think that's.
I think it's slightly with McLaren. It's slightly different at the minute because of Lando. I think a lot more younger fans are getting involved because of Lando, and the Lando fans and are such McLaren fans. But yeah, it is. As Spunges, you know, you're a diehard McLaren fan, and that doesn't change. Yeah, you're a team fan rather than a driver fan. Yeah, but at the minute, I think it's they get a lot of younger following. Same with Danny.
Which is going to be great for the sport, because we need new generations, we need younger generations tuning in. They're going to be hopefully introducing things that are going to keep those fans on board. You know, long into bringing new drivers in as well. You know, it's about the future generation of fans, and hopefully we'll have more like Lando who, you know, go onto social media, use social media as a platform to kind of reach out and actually include the fans within everything that they do.
So I've got a question for you all on the subject of McLaren. Obviously, we've got Danny Rick there now. Lando did very well last year, but who's going to score the more points out of the two of them, do we think?
I think Danny. I think he's got that. He's got that experience and that killer instinct. I think to put the car where it needs to be. It's like, you know, like Alonso would have back in the day. I think Lando's still got a bit of development to do to get to that point. I think if Danny's comfortable with the car straight away, he'll be there scoring points every weekend. So I think Lando really needs to up his game this year.
Yeah, and we had a similar kind of conversation in the last podcast about who we thought might perform better. And I actually said at the time that Lando would be the victor of the two, just because of his experience with the team specifically, and the relationship that he has with the team. And you know, they love him. That, you know, he is a McLaren boy. He has been a McLaren boy for a number of years, even before obviously actually joining the team as their driver. You know, test driver and whatnot, in their young driver program and all these different things. He's been connected to McLaren for years. But seeing obviously the results from testing, and obviously we can never take testing as, you know, concrete evidence that one is better than the other, but seeing how comfortable Danny did look within the team, how he just settled in straight away and he was topping the sessions. It's very hard to look past that. So yeah, I'm switching sides now. I love Lando, but I'm switching teams to Daniel Ricciardo, because I think he will probably outscore Lando this year. How about you, Sponge? What are your thoughts?
I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be a tale of two halves of the season. I think
Yep.
you were all talking earlier about Danny Rick said it took him a little while to get up to speed with the Renault, and I think he's going to be in a bit of the same situation trying to get up to speed with the McLaren. So I can see Lando going off in front a little bit in the first half of the season, but I think as the season goes on, Danny Rick's probably going to shine through. As long as they both keep finishing, I don't really mind. But I want it to be Lando. I think it'll be Danny Rick at the end of the season.
So do you think we're going to see some more Danny Rick versus Max Verstappen? Different cars now, but do you think that's going to be the McLaren are going to be in that position to be able to battle Max?
I hope so.
Yeah, hopefully.
I really hope so. I really hope so. You know, Max's inconsistency, I'm hoping, will be something that the McLarens can take advantage of. Obviously, Max is a brilliant racer. You know, there's no doubt about it. But he just is not consistent, and that's his downfall throughout previous seasons. That's why it's been close between him and Bottas, and you know, there's always been those kind of that kind of inconsistency. So I'm hoping that with any remaining inconsistencies from Max, that Lando and Ricciardo can kind of take it to them and sneak some points off them. And I can see them, you know, I can see it being close for that second place. How about you, Sponge?
I think it's going to be close. I don't know who's going to end up where. I do think it'll be close. I really do. Yeah. I hope that it doesn't turn out. Was it 4 or 5 seasons ago where Ferrari and Mercedes were really, really close for half a season, and then all of a sudden Ferrari kind of went backwards and Mercedes just ran off with it in the end. I hope it's not like that. I hope we get a good challenge all the way through. But I genuinely, if Mercedes don't go off with it like they usually do, I can genuinely see a 4-way battle up the top every race.
Brilliant. Let's hope so. Anyway, let's move on from McLaren because we've dedicated a lot of time to them. I think it's obviously because we're big fans of them, which is great. It's exciting, but there are, you know, 9 other teams on the grid. So let's talk about AlphaTauri, who actually performed great within the test. And quite importantly, actually, Yuki Tsunoda has turned up and he has fired in some rapid laps. We have subsequently learned that he was using the go faster button pretty much the whole way around the lap.
Jeremy Clarkson, power,
Yeah.
power.
Power! I can use the power. Yeah. So it's probably just a confidence booster thing, but he's been pressing the button and he pumped in some great laps towards the latter part of the testing. Have you got an opinion on Yuki Tsunoda, Adam?
Yeah, he seemed to be on the ball straight away. Getting the laps in. He did plenty of laps around the track, getting used to the car, getting used to the team, getting used to how it all works. And there was a lot of talk, coming in the season how he's been very impressive. He's had a very short career up to this point. He hasn't had as much single-seater experience as some of the other drivers, but he seems to have come in straight away and really been quite fast, other than using the go faster button. So he's definitely been very impressive in testing, as well as Gasly. Pierre Gasly has been very strong in testing as well. He's been right up there.
Pierre Gasly is really comfortable with the team. He was obviously there when he was Toro Rosso, coming up through the ranks of the Red Bull Driver Academy. He obviously had his visit to the top team with Red Bull and then got demoted back down. But I think that's probably the best place for him. He's more comfortable there. There's less pressure there for him to win. Obviously, there is pressure for him to score as many points as possible. But he just seems a lot more comfortable and he's able to perform to a much better standard without that pressure. Are you a Gasly fan this year, Danny? Are you going to be cheering him on? Do you want to see him on the top step?
Yeah, I like Gasly. Yeah, he's a great driver. Obviously, the knockback from Red Bull was the issue for a little bit, I think. It's certainly a confidence knock, isn't it, that? But luckily he fell on his feet, really. He's in a good position. Did very well last year. Yeah, and Yuki as well. You know, even if you take away the speed, I think he looked very comfortable in the car. You know, he handled it very well. Didn't really. I know he had that one spin. I think
Yeah.
Martin Brundle had to change his pants after that. He certainly jumped because he was in the wrong position. Yeah, but yeah, even taking away the speed, you know, he was very comfortable in that car, and you can see the determination, and you can see that he is a good driver. You know, so it's I'm excited to see how well Gasly does because of last year and how much he progressed and the confidence has come back. But also, I'm excited to see how well Yuki does. Really, yeah, he's either going to do very well or throw himself into it and end up in the wall. Yeah, like Albon throwing himself into every situation he could. It didn't really work out. You can be overconfident sometimes, and if you don't have the abilities to pull it off, you end up coming off the worst, which we saw with Albon, unfortunately, and could end up going backwards. Yeah.
So, Coops, have you got anything to take away that we should take away from testing? Have you got anything any interesting points that you want to make sure we touch upon before we finish the section?
Well, I think the biggest one, which is an appropriate choice of words, is Alpine.
Okay.
The cars came out pretty thick.
Yeah.
That airbox design is...
Baby got back.
It's baby, yeah. I like big butts. But yeah, they're the only team that have turned up at testing with this kind of bulbous airbox.
Air intake, isn't it? Is it the air intake?
Yeah, it's the kind of basically everything from behind the air intake's quite fat, and they've done that on purpose. They've moved a lot of stuff around from their engine down and raised it up because they want a thinner, a more tighter Coke bottle rear end of the car and slightly smaller kind of side pods. So because of that, they've decided that the air intake's going to be a lot wider than other teams.
It does look strange though, doesn't it? We haven't seen anything like that for quite a while.
Yeah, I think it was `𝐃𝐫𝐢𝐯 and like the teapot style 𝐃𝐫𝐢𝐯 from a number of years back was probably the big massive one. But other than that, no, we haven't. And I mean, I've heard a few things that Alpine, when they put the car and the design onto the dyno, the wind tunnel and stuff like that, the figures didn't make much of a difference. There wasn't any difference at all to having such a big one to a smaller size. So they decided that it worked for them. Although I did read an article today that Alonso has said that the Alpine is slow.
Oh, okay. So he's making friends again with his team.
Alonso is being Alonso.
Typical answer.
We've not got the GP2 coach yet, but he did say that it will be a struggle for them to get into Q3. So that'll be interesting to see. But I mean, that was quite an interesting thing to see when you noticed it, and when Sky put the cutaways from either side, you noticed it really quite substantially different.
So they've got a good-looking car, the Alpine.
Oh, the sexiest car on the grid.
It looks great on the livery. Looks great on the track. But are they going to perform? Are they going to be where they were last year? Are they going to be fighting out for that third place?
No. When you've got Ocon as your number 2 driver, you're not going to fight for anything.
Pretty decisive there, Coops. So no, they're not going to be anywhere. Let's move along to the next team, Aston Martin. How was the Aston Martin then?
Oh no, it was in the garage for most of the weekend.
As just like the road cars, I hear.
Actually, it was more like Vettel was in the garage for most of the weekend.
Oh, conspiracy theory, tin pot hat on there, come on.
That's all I'll say.
So, is Vettel just doing what Vettel does and has done for the last few years, or is it just teething problems?
Well, it was a gearbox issue which affected Mercedes as well as Aston Martin.
Yeah,
although they said it was a different issue than the Mercedes one.
Well, that might actually help with regards to the season then, if the gearbox is genuinely just not reliable. Anyway, and then I think the last day on the Sunday, Aston Martin tweeted out there was a boost problem, so that sounds like a turbo issue.
Oh, okay.
It just said boost, so I'm not sure if
it was a turbo.
Yeah, so you've got a turbo issue, you've got a gearbox issue. There was an electrical issue that they stopped at the end of the pit lane. I mean, I don't know how much you want to read into it. I mean, I think Vettel quoted he was about 100 laps shorter than he would like to have been for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But on the plus side of it, it's a good, nice looking car. It looks better.
Oh, it's beautiful. Gorgeous. It looks great on the track. I didn't get to watch lots of testing, but I tuned in on the first morning on the Friday just to see what the cars look like, and it looks amazing. I really like the look of the car.
At a distance, though, it does look like a Mercedes. At a distance, if you see it coming towards you, you're like, is that a Mercedes? Is that an Aston Martin? I can't tell.
Yeah.
You've also, and the other thing as well that's a positive is we've got Vettel in a Mercedes car, effectively. And the Mercedes cars usually have a more stable rear end, which suits Vettel's driving style. The SF1000 from last year, the rear end was horrible. And Vettel couldn't deal with it. So, and I think, as we probably all know, Formula One comes to a driver. So when Vettel won his 4 championships, the regulations suited his driving. The Red Bull was designed to suit his driving, and everything worked for him. So he won it.
Yeah.
Same situation. Formula One came to Jenson Button when Jenson Button won his championship. The reason why Hamilton is so special is he's probably the only one that transcends that rule. So, you know, you hope that Vettel now in a better environment, somewhere that's loved. He's got a good relationship with the Stroll family. He's actually close friends with, I think it's with Lawrence Stroll as well. So, and the car's got a more stable rear. And it's more what he likes
in a car. Yeah.
So we should hopefully get to see it coming closer to the front. But again, they're very much like Ferrari and not really Mercedes, because Mercedes are different, but they're very much like Ferrari and they're an unknown quantity. We don't know anything because they weren't out enough. So we didn't get to see proper race runs. We didn't get to see quali sims.
Are we going to see a good battle for that third place like we did last year?
No, I think McLaren, because they've managed to put a Mercedes engine into a Renault designed car, and it didn't break down for 3 days of testing, and it just got on with it.
Yeah.
Well, they have got experience with changing engines.
That's true. Very true.
They don't have experience of changing engines and it actually being fast.
True.
So, but yeah, I think McLaren, if the progress stays the way it is that we're seeing in testing, and with the driver lineup and Ricciardo being who he is, I don't think it's going to be as close a fight for third.
Okay.
But again, I think that Williams are going to beat Haas and Alfa Romeo, so then with the animal.
Is that prediction still standing? I know, obviously, you made this prediction a few podcasts ago.
I'm slightly worried because I've heard a few things about Williams, which we'll come on to in a minute, but I've heard a couple of things about Williams and their philosophy for this season, which doesn't really make sense.
Okay, well, let's touch on Williams now, because we've spoken. We've got to get the podcast ended. So let's move on to the Williams team then, if you've got something to say about them. What have you heard?
Well, the first thing is that the livery isn't as bad as it looks. It looks like the default livery from a Formula One game on the PC or something, or Project Cars. But when you saw it live, it actually looks quite nice. Quite like
yeah. I like the front end of it. I'm still not sure about the rear.
The side still, even when you see it, because there's actually a wee bit of touch of yellow through the side, which wasn't in the window. So it looks a bit nicer. But anyway, moving away from that, what I found out when I was reading stuff and watching testing is Williams are preparing themselves. They've designed a car that is very, very sensitive to the wind. So it's peaky downforce. So if the wind isn't optimal, then they're going to have a situation, which really doesn't make much sense.
So are you confident in your prediction about overtaking Alpha and Haas?
I'm not as confident. However, Williams have George Russell. You know, Haas have 2 unknown drivers. Now, Nikita Mazepin done all right over the 3 days. Didn't really do anything particularly bad, as much as social media tried to make him out to be a demon, because he apparently was laughing when Hamilton spun. But then we never see him spin.
So was everyone else.
Yeah.
So having a good laugh. Oh, Christ, he spun.
Yeah.
So, but he wasn't. And then somebody else tried to say that he almost crashed into the Alpha when he didn't. He was close by him. And
There was a whip of understeer or oversteer, wasn't it?
And it just looked a bit weird because they were close on the track. But anyway, kind of digressing. But the Williams, I've got George Russell, but their philosophy to go down this route with a kind of peaky downforce. So, and the thing about having like this kind of really sensitive peaky downforce is that if you're in turbulent air, which the Williams will be because it will be behind another car majority of the season, that's just the same as having wind against it.
Yeah.
It's not thingy. And the other thing as well, the over testing, Sergio Perez lost part of his engine cover. He was behind a Williams, which, and a lot of drivers have said that it's the Williams is more turbulent to follow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I remember them saying that. Yeah.
So it's
that's a good thing for Williams, not so much for the rest of the field.
But the problem is, if you're having if Mercedes or Red Bull decided to go down with this peaky downforce idea, with them probably going to be at the front, it's not going to be that big a deal. But when you're doing it with a team that's at the back, it's always going to be following another car.
Does it show their intent to try and compete though? Is it not a positive that they're trying something different? They're trying something new. They're pushing the boundaries.
Williams are always positive. Well, no, not always, but this year it is because the investment they've had. I mean, Dorothy Capital have put in over 100 million, and that's not include buying the team. And that Josh Capito is a very competent CEO.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to take a few years. I just don't see it now, you know, with testing, seeing it being as good as what people were kind of hoping. They are doing some work to the car.
Yeah. They actually did put in some representative times during testing. They did seem to be a bit all right to place, but they did put in some good times, especially on the last day.
But then the last day might have been, you know, very low fuel, quality runs, turn the engine up, you know.
But as you say, they have got George Russell in the team, so hopefully
that's their only trump card is George Russell, really.
Anything else to add to that, Danny? I know you're a big George Russell fan. Are you going to be watching the Williams with intrigue this year?
Yeah, I think I stick by. I think they're going to come above Haas. I think they're going to get a couple of points this year. Yeah, I mean Mazepin and Schumacher did pretty well in testing. I mean, it's not
considering
amazing.
The car they've got. Yeah,
considering the car they got, I didn't think they'd be able to drive it how they did. I think they did pretty well, and especially with them being you know, the newbies as such as well. I think they settled in pretty well. I know I said it in the to you guys earlier in the week after testing. I think if Haas get a couple of points and do come above Williams, and Williams don't improve, I think Williams have serious issues. I mean, Haas aren't developing their car this year. They've done nothing to it because they're going to focus on next year. So that alone, if Williams still can't pit them to the points, then that's serious issues, really.
Yeah.
Especially considering they've got George in the car, because he is a brilliant driver, as we've seen. When he gets the chance to drive something that can be driven and raced, then he's brilliant. So we'll see. Looking forward to seeing how well they do. But I've had years of expecting from Williams, and they've been on the downfall. But I do believe they'll come back. It just depends.
They can't go any lower.
They can't go any lower.
That's one positive.
Yeah, no, they can't. But I mean, if you stay that low for too long, I think you're going to be gone. We'll see. We'll see. I think it'd be a shame to see Williams leave F1, obviously. As we said, it's a family name that everybody loves. But how long can you keep chasing the pack for and holding drivers like George Russell back? You know, not that they're holding him back. There's no position for him at another team at the minute. But you know, it's just frustrating to see such a driver sat in a car, you know, that it just isn't doing anything like it should be. You know, so it's yeah. If it wasn't such a family name, I think they'd be in the position like Haas, where they're just passing drivers through. You know, somebody comes and they're going to go. Somebody comes and they're going to go. But I mean, we'll see what the future of Haas is in F1 as well. You know, once they do make changes next year and start, if they can't progress really, because they're not doing anything either. So, and they haven't got the family name and history that Williams have. So we'll see. We'll see.
That's will be Mazepin Grand Prix by next season.
You think?
That's probably why he hasn't sold that. He's not doing anything to the car, because Gene Haas has probably already sold it. Because if you remember, the Mazepin family wanted to buy Racing Point or North India, and they got stumped. And he actually was going to take the Stroll family to court and the administrators to court, because he said that he should have got it.
There was underhand business going on, yeah.
That's what he tried to say. So what better way to go against them is to buy a team? But I don't know what you're buying with Haas, because they don't own
anything really, do they?
Don't really. I know they buy everything in. I mean, the chassis made by, is it Dallara?
Yeah.
You know, they bring it. They don't do a lot. You're not buying much other than an entry and maybe a name. But then, you know, the Mazepins own 2/3 of Russia, so they've got
the money for it.
The GDP of a small country, so you know, I'm sure they'll be able to work it out.
Okay, was there any other standout points from testing before we move on to close the show? What can we say? Anything we've missed? Perez, you said, had a blowout of the engine cover. Was there a reason behind that? You said it was the
well, he was following the Williams, but no, it was just an engine cover. It caught a bit of turbulence, probably a clip broke or something, and
not sealed down properly or whatever when it
when it happened. Because they're that thin that it didn't do much. It didn't survive much. I mean, in general, there wasn't a lot of red flags. There was a couple. We had a red flag for Sainz stopping on track. We had a red flag for that incident with the engine cover for a bit of sweeping up the thing. And then the only other red flag was Hamilton when he put it in the gravel.
There's only one car stopped on track, which was
Carlos Sainz, and that was
incredible.
Was that the first day?
I think it was Leclerc.
Was it Leclerc?
Yeah, I think it was Leclerc. They originally thought it was in you run out of fuel on purpose, but then it wasn't. It seemed to be an actual issue. But yeah, that was only stoppage in the whole 3 days.
Yeah, the car travelled on. They just got on with it. You know, Alpine and Ricciardo, they done hundreds and hundreds of miles. So yeah, the only other thing that I don't think we touched on was McLaren came in with a slightly different diffuser. Now, you know, Spunge needs to calm himself down. It's not the Braun double diffuser situation. So they just came up with a slightly different interpretation of the rules. But I think the kind of closing word has to go to Red Bull for their test these 3 days. I don't remember a test where Red Bull were just they just went out there.
Yeah, from day one they were just there.
On everything, you could tell that Sky Sports, the reporters were saying that in Red Bull, everything, they were bouncing, they were on their toes, they were laughing, they were, you know, Perez got out in the car, got on with it, and put in some good times. And I think someone put a comparison and equalised the times between Verstappen and Perez. And actually, if you'd done whatever it was they did, Perez came out faster.
So it's going to be a close battle in the team itself, if not on the track with the other teams.
It's the Achilles heel for Red Bull. They've not had their wingman. If Verstappen had it, like when Hamilton had a wee bit of a mare or wasn't quite on it, Bottas was there. When Verstappen had a mare, Albon was 10th. It just, you know, that doesn't help anybody.
So do you think Red Bull are serious contenders for the constructors at the very least this year?
I think they're contenders for both. I think there's a fundamental issue with the Mercedes. There's something. It's not just a case of a bit of tricky wind here and binning it, which or a couple of things breaking. That's supposed to happen in testing. There's something. The car was not planted. Now I watched 3 days of testing, which was not the most thrilling thing to watch. But anytime the Mercedes was on, I think on the third day, Bottas looked like he was driving a Mercedes for a wee bit in one half a day. But other than that, when you've got somebody like Hamilton losing it, and as Adam's on earlier, they couldn't get the sweet spot, and it's not just about finding the sweet spot. Something is fundamentally not right with that car.
Yeah, but let's be honest about it. If they do see after 2 races that they're not performing in the car, they'll just revert to last year's car, which was
they can't
miles.
Last year's car because I think it's linked to the new rules.
Yeah,
I think it's the rear end of the car that's not doing what it's supposed to do.
Right.
So it's not quite as simple as just maybe they could have done that, but they can't because there was quite a lot of changes in terms of what they can do and put things through. And I think this is the time, the start of this season, the first 2 or 3 races, what have we got? We've got Bahrain, we've got Portimao, the third one. What's the second race? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Imola.
So you're looking at those first 3 races minimum where Red Bull need to win them because I don't think Mercedes are going to be there. They're going to be there because they're Mercedes and Hamilton, but they're not going to be quite as dominant. And then I'll eat my words when Hamilton comes out and he's 2 seconds faster than everybody in the first qualifying. But
we shall see. We shall see. Anyway, that's our roundup of the testing. We've obviously talked about testing quite a bit now. That's kind of we've touched on most things. I think there might be a couple of teams we maybe didn't focus on too much, but we certainly mentioned their names. The only other bit of news that really has been released this week, it's been a very quiet week in the world of F1, is the new track in Saudi Arabia. It's going to be in Jeddah. It's a new street race. It's going to be the fastest average time lap of a street race ever, 250 kilometers per hour. It's going to be the longest street race lap with 27 corners. You saw the images today. What were your initial thoughts on that? Spunge, have you got any? Did you see the track today for Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, I've seen it. Not very impressed. Obviously, jury's out until they get the chance to run around it. It
looks very narrow, doesn't it?
It's very narrow. There's lots of very high-speed corners. Can't really see where there's an opportunity for people to get alongside and cause issues. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to DRS. So it's just going to be a bore fest as it always is when it comes down to this kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, we'll give it a chance as we do everything.
And they seem to put one of the taglines was 3 DRS zones, like that was a good thing.
Get rid of that.
Adam, what were your thoughts on the track? Did you like it?
I didn't really look at too much detail. I saw a bit of the virtual onboard video. It reminded me a bit of like a Formula E track. It's all sort of close walls and straights, corners and straights. It didn't seem very involving, but I didn't really look at it in too much detail.
No, and it's obviously a Tilke design or a Tilke inspired design.
No, he seems to have forgotten how to design a track.
No, he
hasn't designed some great tracks, and he just seems to have forgotten
it. I think he's made one. Was it not? I think he's done one track that's decent.
He did Sepang. I think he designed Sepang.
Yeah,
Turkey was a good one,
and Turkey as well. Yeah,
but he does the same thing as he always does: long straight, tight corner, longish straight, tight corner, a couple of sweeping corners. There's nothing there that's going to promote any kind of race. I think it might be good in qualifying because you might see somebody, doing like Verstappen did a few years ago where it was on Drive to Survive where he was tipped to get pole and he binned it, smashed it into the thing, he ended up at the back of the grid. I think you could see that. But it reminds me a wee bit like Vietnam in terms of me racing it in the Formula One game, because the Vietnam track was horrible.
Yeah, I hate that track.
Could not
Hate it.
get into it. All tried it, I couldn't hook it up, couldn't work out. It's a very similar looking track.
Yeah, all the corners look the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, where am I?
I just not.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking. I'm always interested because it's a new track, regardless of the political issues. And I've touched on that when it was first announced we were going there. It'll be interesting to see, but again, a narrow track with these cars that, remember, they're nearly 6 foot wide.
Yeah, they're wide beasts, aren't they? Danny, have you got an opinion on the Saudi Arabia track in Jeddah?
No, yeah, it's quite narrow, isn't it? It's speed. Is it going to be racing really, or is it just going to be about speed? You know, DRS. We shouldn't be shouting about 3. Well, we want none. You know, it's no. I don't think there's going to be much passing. I think it's going to be another Monaco. We'll.
It seems like they've gone for big headlines, haven't they? 27 corners, longest street circuit lap on the.
About 20
in the world.
Aren't even corners.
I was going to say, what do they need to class as a corner? I don't understand. There's not 27 corners there. It's a slight bend, if anything, for about 20 of them. And then you've got a big turnaround at this end and a big turnaround at that end.
Or a hairpin, as you would say, like the hair clip that we posted on our Facebook page.
But yeah, we'll see. As Coops said, always excited to see a new track. But
this is a temporary track, isn't it? Because they're actually building an actual track in Saudi Arabia. From what I gather,
probably.
This is just to kind of get them on the calendar this year. I don't know whether it's going to be for a couple of years, and then they'll have a new track, an actual track which might promote decent driving. This is just kind of a temporary.
It's only going to promote
fix.
Decent driving if Tilke doesn't design it.
I don't think the FIA or Formula One will drop Tilke. I think they rely on him too much, to be honest with you.
Alex Wurz has got a company that does track design, and apparently he's done quite a few decent ones.
Maybe time for someone else to have a go.
Well, how many decent Tilke tracks are there? What, 2? And how many has he made? 307?
There are aspects of some of the laps and some of the circuits that are really good. It's just they're all very Tilke. He's brilliant at the buildings, and he makes the the architecture around the tracks look absolutely beautiful, and I think that's probably what he prefers.
Here we go. He has designed Sepang, Circuit Bahrain, Shanghai, Istanbul, Valencia. I love Valencia. Singapore, Yas Marina, Korea.
Yeah, and Korea didn't exactly have a great race. Bahrain got better, but wasn't brilliant to start off with.
But he designed Circuit of the Americas track, which is actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's probably the only track he done right.
Russia as well, which is actually a pretty good track.
Russia?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, on the game, driving it is good.
Yeah.
Racing's not very good, but actually driving it is good.
In the real time. Yeah.
And the Hanoi, so Vietnam. So that's all the ones he's done.
Yeah, that was awful. So we were glad we never saw a race on that track.
A1. Okay, so he did the A1 ring in Austria as well, which is a good track.
So we've got 2 out of about 20.
There were a few more than 2 that he has had. I think he has had a few good tracks. As I say, he tends to have a good couple, and then he has a really bad run of not so great tracks, and then he'll do another one that's actually pretty good when he finds another theory out and tries something a bit different, and then again he tries to copy that and emulate that too many times into the next few races, and they all just become very, very similar to each other. But we can agree that he's got a couple of tracks that we like to enjoy racing on. That's pretty much all the news that we've had this week. There wasn't any additional things that came out apart from obviously all the results from testing. So that's really all we've got space to talk about. As usual, please follow us on all our social medias. So we're at Join the F1 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Go over to those social medias, give us a like, follow us, and we will try and keep you up to date with as much of the latest F1 news as possible. Obviously, subscribe to this podcast. We've also got a YouTube channel. We will be getting more content on there as we go further into the season. And of course, if you haven't already, please join the Everything F1 Fantasy League. We've got around about 50 players already rolled in to the league. By all means, come into the league and join and see if you can beat us. We will be given a prize at the end of this year. And the prize will be given to whoever is the top scoring non-Everything F1 person. So join the league. We want to see you, all your teams, and see how well you can do, and if you can beat any of us in the league too. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you very much for listening today. Thanks very much to my co-hosts, Danny, Coops, Spunge, and Adam. Thank you very much for listening today, and stay tuned to the page for all the latest breaking news. Bye-bye from me, and bye-bye for everyone else. Bye-bye.
Bye.